Musical legend and secret collector, David Bowie's art comes under the hammer.
£5,600,000 here.
And it was the sale of the season. 50,000 people flowed through Sothebys in London to see the secret art collection of music legend David Bowie, coming to auction less than a year after his death in New York. Nearly 2,000 turned up for the 3 days of auctions, and 1,000 registered to bid online. There is no doubt that prices were high because of the Bowie connection, but his was a discerning eye, guided by art expert Kate Shatavian.
When I look back at the collection and what we did together, there was a lot of digging around. And a lot of thinking about why this painting versus that painting, or why this sculpture. And if you think about those sales, modern British picture sales, so if you think of one auction, you've got a huge price range between the auctions. So you can think of the Gilman that we bought. And Mrs. Manta was a very specific purchase. There are 3 of them out there. You know, Mrs. Manta never comes onto the marketplace. Of course we're going to try for it. And of course, if you're interested in modern British pictures, this is significant. It's really significant. So he would be paying a record price. It's not that he suddenly decided that was a great picture and I'm going to buy it. And in the same sale, he was buying very modest pieces that we were looking for. We were bouncing in values, but we knew exactly why we were doing it. He really came to it with tremendous curiosity. I might have pointed out a great picture in that particular field, but I never ever felt as though I was teaching him anything.
David Bowie bought everything from modern British art, Peter Lanyon, Winifred Nicholson and Harold Gilman, for example, through sculptors such as Henry Moore, and on to Damien Hirst and Frank Auerbach, whose head of Gerda Boehm, one of the top lots, caused Bowie to say, "I want to sound like that looks."
It's very important in the context of the pictures that Bowie loved, because Bowie saw this painting every day, and he famously spoke about Auerbach in an interview with the New York Times in 1998. He said that if he was feeling anxious, Auerbach's painting could really bring out that angst. But on another day, if he was feeling great joy or a feeling of triumph, he said, "I want to sound like that looks." And I think when you look at it, it's literally like a painting sculpted in oil.
Bowie enjoyed the abstraction of Jean-Michel Basquiat. There's an estimate of 2.5 to 3.5 million on Air Power, painted in 1984, containing clues to so many aspects of Basquiat's life: Haitian father, Puerto Rican mother, and a childhood in Brooklyn.
Bowie was really drawn to Basquiat because Basquiat also understood music. Basquiat had played in the Mud Club in New York that Bowie had frequently visited and enjoyed the music there. So there was something about the mark making, the energy with which the paint is applied to the canvas that Bowie completely understood. He wrote about Basquiat for the magazine Modern Painters in the 1990s. And it's worth mentioning, and because it's part of Bowie's life that lots of people don't realise, that in the 1990s, he joined the editorial board of Modern Painters, and this really shows how intellectually engaged he was with the art world. He wrote articles for Modern Painters. He wrote about Basquiat, Damien Hirst, about contemporary African art. He interviewed artists such as Jeff Koons, Baltus, all for Modern Painters. And I think it really demonstrates how his mind worked. He loved conversations with artists. He loved finding out what was really at the core of what they were doing, what was causing them to push the boundaries, I suppose in the same way that he really pushed boundaries as a musician.
David Bowie said art could change the way he felt in the mornings. And nowhere was that connection felt more intensely than with that portrait of Gerda Boehm. It comes before a packed sale room with an estimate of 300,000 to 500,000. But that figure is fast forgotten.
550,000, 380, is it a new? 2,900,000. £3 million. Thank you very much. It's 3 million. 3,100,000. 3,150,000. 3,150,000.
Frank Auerbach's portrait is on its way to setting a new record for the artist, and the excitement among buyers in the room is palpable.
3,250,000, that's fair warning. And selling to you, Simon. Last chance at £3,250,000. Sold to you.
With the buyer's premium, that's a little under £3.8 million, 10 times its estimate. Presumably, the successful bidder shares Bowie's view when he said, "All art really does keep you focused on questions of humanity," which sets the scene for the Basquiat Air Power, on which Sotheby's have put a top estimate of £3.5 million. But like the lot before, that proves conservative.
At £5,600,000.
There's an extra special connection between Bowie and Jean-Michel Basquiat. In 1996, Bowie played the role of Andy Warhol in a film about Basquiat, and that's an added attraction to bidders here.
£6 million. At £6 million, £6,100,000. £6,200,000. Thank you very much indeed, sir. £6,200,000. £6,200,000. Amy, disappearing now. That's £6,200,000. Your bid, sir, and selling. Thank you very much indeed. For £6,200,000. Thank you very much.
Add the buyer's premium, and the person who takes home Air Power is having to part with nearly £7.1 million, over double the catalogue estimate. And that's the story of the sale. Just 47 lots chosen for their interest and provenance, which together fetched almost £24.5 million. The evening sale of David Bowie's collection certainly grabbed the headlines, but the day sales had their own stars, including a sculpture by Dame Elizabeth Frink. This is Warrior, estimate £25,000 to £35,000.
Frink's really interesting to me because she's a woman who specialises in sculpting men. She's interested in power, she's interested in the male form, and that's kind of the reverse of the usual thing where it's men sculpting women. She's one of our most significant sculptors in the 1950s. She came out of a generation alongside people like Reg Butler, who's behind, Meadows, Paolozzi, Turnbull, this kind of great generation that's were really recognised back in the day by the international art world as being artists of significance. Bowie, I think, never thought about what things were worth. He bought things that he liked, things that moved him. He was equally happy to go out there and break a world auction record for a picture if he really wanted it, but just as well to buy something that was maybe going a little bit under the radar. His collection is just all about his own eye, leading him to pictures that he really has a relationship with.
80 to 120,000 is what Sotheby's are asking for a head by Sir Edoardo Paolozzi.
This is The Wedding of the Rock and Dynamo by Edoardo Paolozzi. I think for me Paolozzi is one of the greatest sculptor you've never heard of. Again, part of this generation like Frink, who came out in the early 1950s. His technique's really interesting in the sense that he would pick up junk from junkyards, from the street, then cast those bits of junk into wax, and then from there make a kind of bronze sheet, which then he'd weld together to form an image like this. It's anthropomorphic, it's a head, it's kind of robotic, but it's this slightly dystopian, used vision of the future, rather than in 1960, the vision of the future at the time would have been very shiny and chrome, and this is a kind of different kind of take. Well, the estimate is 80,000 to 120,000. For me, I think it should get a lot more than that because I think Paolozzi is such an important sculptor.
But perhaps the most unusual lot is a chess set by the artist and photographer Man Ray.
It was made in the mid-1940s when he and Marcel Duchamp were collaborating on an exhibition around the theme of chess. Chess is a really important idea to Duchamp, and Duchamp is one of the most influential people on Bowie himself. He wrote how he wanted to be the Marcel Duchamp of rock, and I think for him, Duchamp and Man Ray and the other Dadaists encouraged Bowie to kind of explore the sort of found object almost, that the idea that things are out there already and it's just the artist's role to pull them down from the culture, remix them and represent them. We don't know when he bought it. A lot of the works in the collection is a little bit unclear as to when he got them, although he was collecting hard in the 80s and 90s. This was in his apartment in New York. I cannot say for sure, but I'm pretty sure that he played with it. And you know, there's amazing photographs of him and Catherine Deneuve on a film set playing chess together. And he was a great reader. He was an intellectual. So chess must be just another part of that.
How did the auctioneers place a value on a piece like this?
It's really difficult to price. All the estimates in the sale are what we think they're worth in a kind of regular context, but what the effect of them being owned by David Bowie is, we really don't know. But we're kind of leaving that open to the public to decide.
And decide they did. The Frink sells for 40,000. And the Man Ray chess set? It's knocked down for £106,000, well over 3 times its estimate.